Welcome back to another episode of Tuxedo Time. We're Tuxedo's in Time Podcast Edition. Aftershow Edition. Yeah, we're bringing it back, baby.
What are we talking about today?
Aftershow Edition for episode 2 of Sleepy Creek.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember what we did?
Oh, God, I don't remember what we did. Hold on, let me guess.
Okay.
We bought the land on the first one.
Yep.
The second one, we started planning out the campsites.
We started excavating.
Excavating. Excavating, planning and excavating.
So in the second episode, on a whim, we decided we were going to make this campsite. And I got home from a trip and you were like, pack your shit because we're going out to the property. I got an excavator rented, excavator rented, brush hog, and something else. And I was like, okay.
And don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah.
Go to the woods.
I think I was coming back from condo and so that's what we did. I was like, cool. And you're like, by the way, it's a long weekend. I was like, fantastic. Let's fucking go.
Was that
Labor Day weekend? Labor Day weekend last year.
Okay. So it was over a year ago now.
Yeah. So that's when we started our project.
Right. It's funny because I remember the week before that, like leading into the weekend, I was like, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to rent some heavy equipment and to start, like, I guess, excavating out our campsite.
Yeah.
And then I called the place and they were like, they literally were the ones who told me it was Labor Day weekend. And I was like, oh, you don't have anything available? He was like, well, it's our busiest weekend of the year is Labor Day weekend. I was like, oh, sweet. That means I got a 3-day weekend. And the guy was like, okay, cool.
He's like, what do you want?
Yeah. It's like, okay. He's like, well, we got, what did he say? They had basically just a mid-sized mini excavator.
Mm-hmm.
When that was basically, and then the plate compactor.
Yeah.
And then the
brush
hog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't have a skid steer available.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So that's what we did. And so that was episode 2. We were just like, okay, like had no idea what this like vlog series was going to look like, what the format was going to be. Cause we hadn't really done any planning cause it was a vlog series, not like one of our other series.
Yeah.
And so we're just like, all right, well, fuck it. We're just going to like film everything and figure it out in the edit. And that's kind of what we did. So we went down, we spent 3 days at the land and just kind of were like, okay, well, walked around. We're like, this looks like a good enough spot to put. Well, first of all, we didn't even know if we could get the trucks down there because we had never been down there with the trucks before.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So
I mean, I figured, right? Like they're both 4-wheel drive vehicles.
Yeah.
One is made to be off-road.
Right. But we weren't really sure. Like we had brought my truck in like halfway, like the year before.
Right.
And we're like to clear it to the top.
But it wasn't down the grade.
Correct. So
we were going downhill.
We weren't really sure if we could get down there, but like B, get back up. So that's what I was a little bit worried about. But we did it, no problem. There's a couple of pinch points that were really tight, but it was fine.
Yeah. It's funny because you have to keep your momentum going up the hill, especially if it's wet out.
Oh my God. If it's wet, it's sketchy.
And you're basically just like hauling ass at a pinch point between 2 trees. But then you're like, you got to get all your momentum up front so that you're not trying to accelerate before the trees.
Yeah.
And then because if you accelerate before the trees and you fishtail out, then you're wrecking the side of your car.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, it's a little bit scary. You've knocked your mirror a few times.
A couple of times, yeah.
Thunk.
I've just accepted the fact now that my truck is meant for that and that obviously I'm trying not to wreck it, but like if it gets a little dink on sphinced or whatever, like it's fine, you know?
Not me. My R1S is a pavement princess.
Yeah, and actually it's not. It's been down there quite a bit.
That's true, actually, yeah.
So anyway, I just kind of accepted the fact, like once you get your first scratch, you're like, well, whatever. But I also have a wrap.
I literally dinked my schwinkt.
And
huge
cried, yeah.
dent. I didn't cry.
It was in that episode. You dinked your schwinkt in that episode and cried.
I wasn't crying.
Weren't you? You were devastated.
I wasn't happy about it.
No, you cut down a tree and gave it the fucking finger.
I did. That's what I did. Yeah, I turned the tree into firewood.
Yeah, you were so mad. That tree did have to go, though. It was in a really terrible spot.
It wasn't a bad spot. So we actually we
would have taken it down anyway.
Yeah. It was cathartic, though.
Yeah. But the cool thing about it was that, like, it was kind of impromptu, and you were just like, I got all this shit rented. I was like, great. Somebody else took care of shit that I don't have to do. Perfect. And we just went down and walked it, and we were like, okay, let's start here. This is what this is going to be, and you just started digging. And it was like, we didn't even really, like we had a general idea of like what we wanted to do, but we're like, this feels like a natural spot. Let's go.
It came together very organically.
It did. And what I found really fun about it was like, it almost felt like, you know, a kid
playing in the sand,
or like
sandbox,
going out in the woods when you were a kid and just like trying to find sticks and trying to, you know, like quote unquote build something. You don't actually build anything, but like or like a secret garden, you know what I mean? But it's yours and you have the machinery and you can like do it. And so by the end of the weekend, we were like, whoa, like before it was just woods, and now there's like
It
roads
looks like
and
something.
It looks like something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool to just go down there and freestyle it.
That's funny because my cousin posted on Facebook a while back. He said, I'm convinced that the key to happiness as an adult is doing the same types of things you were doing as a kid, but just having money to throw at it and doing it on like a different scale, a different level.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like what camping is like, you know, when you go out in your backyard when you're a kid and just tent camp, but like now you have the freedoms to like go out when you want, come home when you want, eat whatever you want, and not let dogs through your tent door with poopy buttholes to leave skid marks on your pillow.
That sounds like that happened to you.
It did. And that core memory, I remember they had sour cream and bacon chips.
And you now associate sour cream and bacon ruffles with poopy butthole pillows?
Yeah, when I smell those chips, and like I don't eat them very often, but like I don't even know if they make them anymore, but like that smoky, bacony, like Ruffles chip.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, we're in the tent. Everything is damp. This dog just busted its ass through the door, raked its ass on somebody's pillow, and left a massive old skid mark. No, it was my buddy's. It's my buddy's pillow.
Whose house were you at?
Our neighbors in St. John's. Yeah, I'm curious if they remember that. Yeah. It was a stupid dog next door. Anyway, so I have a question for you.
You have a question for me? Okay. Fire away, Peckham.
How difficult is driving an excavator compared to flying a helicopter?
That's like totally different.
Because you caught onto that excavator pretty quickly.
Yeah, but you're forgetting that I have 2 garden projects that nobody knows about.
That's true. Yeah.
That like we just have made.
Yeah.
At our house in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And we've rented excavators for them.
Yeah.
It was like a pond project.
Oh, that's right. When you hit the side of the fucking house with the thing and everything shook, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
See, that had there's a learning curve. So
that's an embellishment.
Yeah. So Peckham exaggeration. And then we also did a paver patio.
We did, yeah.
And dug another like a water bowl sort of feature.
Do you know what I remember about that project? I barely remember anything about it except for that one night where you were like, we got to get this done because this heavy machine, this plate compactor got to go back tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. We go to Home Depot. We know we're going to be up all night. Red Bull is in me. And I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be, a night. We're up and working on the stupid project till 3:00 in the morning. I couldn't believe how well the Red Bull worked. I was like super wide awake and we were trying to be so quiet. Remember, we were just trying to be like the mouse. We were like, we're like, okay. You got the other side. We had 24 by 24 inch concrete pavers that are like 2.5 inches thick. They're so heavy.
We were up so late that night.
We were up so late. We had lights going and we're like trying not to disturb the neighbors.
Oh my God. I remember specifically taking the mini excavator and trying to strap out the pallet that held all the pavers on it and trying to like hoist it. And it was like so heavy that it was like tipping the excavator over.
Oh my God.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, vaguely. So anyway, that's what I remember from that backyard project.
Oh, and the final step of that project was tamping it with the plate compactor, but we didn't want to. We were literally up to like 4 or 5 in the morning.
And we couldn't do it at 4 or 5.
And I didn't want to turn a plate compactor on at 5 in the morning and wake the neighborhood up.
Yeah. So I think you either stayed up or got back up at like 8. Did it. You ended up cracking one of the pavers and you were like, fuck it, I don't give a shit. And then it turns out that they weren't coming to get the thing, because we thought it was gonna be 8:00 in the morning, but they weren't coming they didn't come to get it till like 2:00.
Yeah, so we could have just done the project in the morning.
Yeah.
But they said we're gonna pick it up in the morning. So like you assume that they're gonna pick it up first thing in the morning, and you can't like assume that they're not, and then have them like not get all your work done, right?
It was so funny because I just remember like these massive paver patios that were so heavy, and we're like, okay, and like you drop one, and you hurt yourself, and you're like, oh, you just gotta be really quiet.
Oh man, that was a nightmare.
Oh,
also, I remember specifically they told, I remember I looked up how to do this project, and I had like all the steps like documented. And then for whatever reason, I double checked, and one source, I think it was like this old house. And this old house usually is like, they usually steer you pretty well.
Yeah.
But they told me to like plate compact the sand before you put down the pavers. Uh-huh. But I don't think you were supposed to. I think you were supposed to put the pavers down before and then you compact it. And then as the sand compacts, it makes sure everything's even.
Right.
And so we had a lot of lippage going on.
Yeah.
And then we had to like lift stuff up and throw sand underneath. It was a nightmare trying to leveling those. It was like trying to tile without leveling clips.
Well, I don't really remember that as much. I just remember that nighttime 3:00 in the morning, me being shocked that I was wide awake and like very awake and up.
Yeah.
And then I just crashed and I was like, I'm done. Nah, fuck this. I went inside at like 3:30, I think.
I remember that now. It's all coming back now.
Yeah.
But your question originally is driving an excavator like flying a helicopter.
Is it excavator or excavator?
Excavator.
Because you always call it an excavator when you're talking fast.
Excavator.
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 It's an excavator, and it's et cetera, not ex cetera.
And it's espresso, not espresso.
The EX.
Et cetera.
Yeah.
Et cetera, not et cetera, et cetera. It's et cetera.
Correct.
That blew my mind.
You were how old when you realized that? Last year?
Like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, is flying a helicopter like driving an excavator?
I mean, it's, piloting a craft through a fluid medium. So
it's not really a fluid medium.
Air is fluid and it's a medium.
Okay.
No, it's not. You're right. In the truest sense of like, you're not using airfoils and things. Yeah, it's just, it's a couple, you know what? I appreciate that. It's a couple levers, right?
Yeah.
Little control points, and there's different, it's hard to be, so the difference is to have skill in both, it probably requires like a similar level of coordination because you're moving multiple articulations, like multiple pivot points at once. So it's like you've got like a pivot point at the root of the arm, you've got a pivot point at the apex of the arm, and then you got a pivot point at the bucket. And all three of those...
Are they all different controls?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So like... But the difference is like in a helicopter, you've got like 4 main control. You got like, multiple degrees of freedom of controls, like multiple essentially levers as well. But the difference is that flying a helicopter is all or nothing. And the result is you die.
That's right. If you just let go of the controls, yeah.
You crash if you can't, like, if you aren't able to manipulate them in real time and stay on top of things.
Yeah.
In an excavator, you can just let go of the controls and the thing will hold itself with the hydraulics in place. And you can, okay, which one do I need to move? Okay, this one. And you can stop and you can think about it. So you can use an excavator without really any training as long as you just kind of figure out how to do it on your own and you just go slowly.
So it's probably easier to get like a smaller one to start off with first than like big bucket, big.
I mean, they function the same. I mean, in fact, when the guy called me that day, I remember he was like, "Oh, are you a John Deere guy? You had John Deere controls?" I'm like, and I didn't really know what the other option was, so I just said yes. And luckily, it came with the controls that I was familiar with. Because I think like the joysticks, like like when you fly drones, you can have like mode 1 or mode 2 or whatever, and it just like it reverses the sticks, so like the left is or whatever it does. But all it is just it means your controls are different than what you expect. So if you're used to a certain control or push does one thing, then yeah, it'd be kind of a bit of a mind fuck if you had the controls all messed up or reversed. But yeah, so you can cheat yourself to use an excavator. It's probably not any harder or easier to use a big one versus a small one, I would imagine. It's just that your consequences are a little bit more grave. Like if we had a giant excavator and I accidentally knocked the bucket off the house, like you said I did.
Yeah.
And you felt the house shake with a mini excavator.
Yeah.
I would have busted.
You probably would have cracked the foundation.
I would have busted that wall down with a big excavator, like Kool-Aid man style, right through the wall into the living room, and you would have been like, "What the fuck?"
And you're like, "Oh yeah!"
And I'd be like, "Oh yeah!"
Oh my God. Okay, so true or false? You got yourself into a little pickle in the excavator, coming down a little bit of a steep grade.
So anybody who uses the excavators will probably say like, that's nothing. But for me, who's not an experienced equipment operator, I got like my butt puckered a little bit. And it was basically like we're trying to carve out some flat areas in a hill to make a platform. So we want one that's furthest down for like a fire pit area, then a larger one that's like a bit bigger, a bit higher up rather, for a tent platform, and then the trail that leads to that is kind of like over a little of a rounded hill. So it's not a steep grade, but like it was one of those things where like you're looking down the hill and you're in this excavator, which feels very top heavy. And you're like, oh, I could like, I don't know, it's not like capsize. I could roll this thing over.
Yeah.
Like I could roll this thing over like very easily.
I had you wearing your hard hat.
Yes, I wore my hard hat and I wore the seatbelt.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to mess around.
I seen you tilting on like a couple of lever points once, and I was like, oh, I couldn't look.
Yeah, so it's got tracks on it, so it's like little like a tank kind of.
Yeah.
And like that thing was like rocking.
Yeah.
And something you can do is like the blade, kind of like the bulldozer, the mini bulldozer type blade on front of it. You can push that can move up and down with a separate control. So you can theoretically drop that blade down so it's making contact, and you can lift the front of the tracks up.
Right.
So you can effectively level yourself and simultaneously anchor yourself. So that's what I was doing, and then I was kind of digging from there. But then like as I dug out this flat area, you're digging into the hill. So now you have a flat area and you're further down, and then I couldn't get the excavator out. like I couldn't go up the hill because the hill was now too steep.
Right.
Because I dug into it. So now I'm like, my excavator is like stuck. And I guess what I could have done is like dug a ramp, a more gradual transition, and made a ramp sort of. And like, but there was a bunch of trees, so the roots were all getting in the way. So I had to like turn it around backwards. So the bucket was on the downhill side. And then as I would I just pulled back on the 2 levers, one for each track to go up the hill. And as the back of the tracks were going up the hill, my like nose was starting to like face towards the ground, and I was like tilting forward. So then what I did, I put the bucket down and like pushed it along the ground and then articulated it so the arm like an elbow extended.
Yeah.
And then that being anchored to the bucket to the ground pushed the excavator back up the hill. So it's like using the hydraulics to like push like an arm to push yourself out of a pit. Yeah. And I know like most heavy equipment operators are probably like, oh yeah, there's a standard operating procedure and it's something like that. Probably. I don't know. I don't do this stuff, but yeah.
Once again, how are they letting people use this stuff without like a special license?
You know what? It's like they called us like, can I rent this 62-foot houseboat? It's like, have you operated a mini excavator before? Yes. Okay, you're good.
You're good to go.
Yeah. Do any of the following apply? A, you have a driver's license. B, you've operated a mini excavator. C,
you know how to fly a helicopter.
You can fly a helicopter. Yeah, it's like, okay, if you check all those boxes and only those boxes, we'll let you rent this excavator or let this houseboat.
Yeah. That's so funny. I seen a couple of questions pop up to like asking if we plan on purchasing any heavy equipment like that. And like, I think that the answer is probably, I mean, like I would love to have some kind of garden tractor at some point. We rent them all the time. I feel like it would be really handy to have, but right now we have nowhere to put it and they're very, very expensive. So John Deere, if you want to, do a little partnership, hit us up.
Yeah. That's the thing is that they're expensive. We'll probably end up spending as much in rentals over the course of our lives.
Yeah.
And to own one. But the issue then becomes, like you said, where to store it.
Yeah. And then once you're done with your projects, what do you do?
How to transport it, because then you need a trailer for it.
Yeah.
But also maintenance. Like if that thing breaks down, I don't know enough about small engines and small engine repair to be able to like do that stuff myself. Mm-hmm. So there's costs to ongoing upkeep of those types of toys that you have to factor in.
There's a couple of suggestions of like you could get a shipping container and leave it down there and put the heavy equipment in there. And I think that's a great idea. I think if we were going to do that, that would probably be what we would do to keep it locked up and then, sell the shipping container after. But like that's also a lot of bungling.
Yeah.
Like it's just easier to call somebody, have them rent it, they drop it off, you go up, you take it down yourself, you leave it, they come pick it up. Or we rent a trailer and we trailer it and get it ourselves. Rentals for us just make a little bit more sense for how often that we're using this stuff.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of it. I just want to talk a little bit about the excavator and that process for that. That was a bit of a short episode and there wasn't a whole lot going on other than, dinking your schwinkt off that tree, and then and the whole episode is basically excavation and then camping in the Rivian. So fun times at the land as always. I think we're gonna let it go here because Chris has to go into work, I think. Thank you so much for listening and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.